if you really want that goal to be ruled out, you don't love football. You love procedure and law and terms and conditions. You're the kind of person who buys a new fridge or oven or toaster and immediately begins reading the manual and marking bits in highlighter pen.
Sorry, I was paying no attention. I was reading my toaster manual. What was that?
Of course.
Hello and welcome to the Guardian Football Weekly. Manchester City win at Anfield to keep the title race alive. A really fun second half. Liverpool on top. Szoboszlai's incredible free kick. City's comeback. Alisson's recklessness gifting them a penalty. Donnarumma's brilliant save and then a ridiculous P-roller drifting into the net with players falling over each other to stop anyone getting it before VAR, brackets correctly, close brackets, spoiled the fun. Elsewhere, Arsenal do feel slightly inevitable. Gyökeres with 2 against Sunderland, while Villa's challenge looks to be over. Manchester United are in the top 4, beating Spurs with a lot of help from a Czech's notes completely out of character challenge from Cristian Romero. Lots of managers under pressure. Eddie Howe after a home defeat to Brentford, Fabian Hertzler after a home defeat to Palace, and Sean Dyche as Forest are hammered at Leeds. There's also a massive win for West Ham and Fulham somehow losing a game they could have been 5-0 up in. We'll answer your questions, and that's today's Guardian Football Weekly. On the panel today, Barry Glendenning, welcome.
Hi, Max.
Hello, Jonathan Wilson.
Morning, how you doing?
And I'm all right, thank you very much for asking. And good morning, Nedum Onuoha.
Morning, sir.
Right, let's start then at Anfield. Liverpool 1, Manchester City 2. And I know we need to talk about the title race and the whole game, but can we start with one of my favourite bits of the season so far? Gmail Man says, my immediate reaction to that Cherky goal, which has just gone in, is Rushden is going to love that. Oliver, was today the first time a player got someone sent off by fouling them? And Rice says, can a disallowed goal be in contention for goal of the season based on comedy value alone? I mean, Barry, just this ball rolling so slowly towards the goal with Haaland and Szoboszlai fouling each other. I loved every second of it.
Yeah, it was tremendously entertaining. And if only Ryan Cherky had hit it a little harder, it would save us about, I'm going to guess, about 15 minutes of chat. I think we can all agree that by the letter of the law, the goal should have been ruled out and the correct decision was eventually arrived at. But by any other metric, fun, bants, vibes, entertainment, referee, romance, it should have been allowed. And people will disagree with this, but I think anyone who claims to love football does not want that goal ruled out. If you really want that goal to be ruled out, you don't love football. You love procedure and law and terms and conditions. You're the kind of person who buys a new fridge or oven or toaster and immediately begins reading the manual and marking bits in highlighter pen, your favourite bits. And I'm reminded of our mate Charlie Baker's impassioned, I wouldn't say a rant, but what was it? A cri de coeur on TalkSport recently, where he described VAR as a thief of joy. He said it's a thief of love, because beauty in football is in the mistake. And a lot of people who watch football, especially kids, don't really care whether referees get things right or not. I'm firmly in that camp, and I totally get that other people aren't. But yeah, I think it was a crying shame that goal was ruled out. I don't think the ref wanted to rule it out, because I don't think he wanted to send off Dominic Szoboszlai. But as Jonathan pointed out in our group chat, it means he's ruled out of Liverpool's game against Sunderland, which is good. But I don't care. I want Dominic Szoboszlai to play against Sunderland. I don't care whether he's ruled out or not. I would like him to be there. But anyway, that is my take on that goal.
Yes,
Ryan Cherky should have hit it harder.
No, but the fact it was so slow made it so fun. I'm scanning the panel to see who might be described as heartless and loving procedure, and my eyes are drawn to Jonathan Wilson.
Sorry, I was paying no attention. I was reading my toaster manual. What was that?
Of course. Do you have a comeback? Do you think?
Yes, it's completely right decision. And people think this is a VAR issue. It's not a VAR issue. The only issue with VAR is Craig Pawson should have made the decision in the moment. Like, as it happened, my first reaction was, this cannot be a goal. There has to be a red card for Szoboszlai. Well, my first thing was, is Haaland in his own half when the ball's played? And yes, he is. So it's not offside. Because it's one of those exciting things where the goalkeeper's not there and the defender is there. So because you're so used to the goalkeeper being behind the defender, you're not thinking offside. But so that was my first thought. My second thought was, this has to be no goal and a red card. You can't have a situation where the ref just chooses to ignore an obvious foul because it doesn't suit sort of the vibe. If Haaland and Szoboszlai had been sort of tussling and had been 50-50, yeah, fair enough, you probably can just about ignore that. But where there's been two fouls, one after the other, you can't ignore it. You can't create incentives where a player who has been fouled but the advantage played then has carte blanche to commit another offence. That just makes no sense. Also, the reason these laws exist, it's not just because of that one game. In this one game, maybe it would have been some kind of natural justice if the game had finished 3-1. But you've got to think of the other consequences. At the minute, City is 6 points behind Arsenal. The goal difference, Arsenal's goal difference is better by 5. It's very possible, or not improbable, not impossible, that the title is decided on goal difference. And if City get an extra goal difference because of a goal that shouldn't have stood, Arsenal would quite rightly be absolutely furious. Equally, if Szoboszlai scores had not been sent off.
Sorry, Wilson. That would have made it better, actually, wouldn't it?
Only in terms of vibes. And look, the reaction of Arsenal fans if that happened would be truly hilarious. That is true. Again, I'm not sure that would it be hilarious is a good way of running any institution. Say Szoboszlai wasn't sent off, scores the winner or scores a hat-trick against Sunderland on Wednesday. Not only is that unfair on Sunderland, it's unfair on those other teams challenging Liverpool for the final Champions League places. Yeah, the reason this feels unsatisfactory is not what Craig Pawson's done, which is to follow procedure perfectly, apart from the fact he should have done it himself rather than hiding behind VAR. The reason it feels unsatisfactory is because Szoboszlai cheated.
Nedum, your head is in your hands, which is early for you, only 7 minutes in.
I know. It's quite impressive, that, isn't it? No, everything that's been said is really interesting. I just keep watching it back. We're very sure that, this is the right process and so on. But is this the right process just because Szoboszlai could have gotten back to stop the ball going in? It feels like maybe 3 or 4 yards further back. Does the ref just let everything go on and it's just a goal and all that other stuff doesn't matter? Because it's technically still like a foul on Haaland, but does Haaland's foul on Szoboszlai matter anymore if Szoboszlai doesn't look like he can get there? Because, that final scene is Szoboszlai laying on the floor in the 6-yard box, close, thinking he could potentially kick it away. Is that the most important thing? Or is it everything else that came before?
If Szoboszlai's not going to get
thinking
there,
he's going to score and then somebody pulls him back. That's red mist. Like, that's the only time you see them angry. Somebody taking away their goal. But yeah, I get it. Like, I unfortunately have turned into that sort of like laws of the game stickler type guy. Well, because this has happened, this is what's going to happen, and so on and so forth. And it's the correct decision. I wish, as Haaland has said, that Cherki tried to play him in instead of trying to shoot. Because I think according to the 2 different speeds of, say, Szoboszlai and Haaland, I think there's only one guy that's going to be potentially winning that one. But also, like, one of the few times, it's so chaotic. And to see it somewhere like Anfield and, even that whole dog sort, like, tell me, like, a more obvious example of a denial of goal-scoring opportunity. Like, this debate, was Salah's won this, was this one that? Well, Haaland's running through on goal and there's no goalkeeper. I think that I know he's been out of form, relatively speaking, over the last month, but that's a pretty strong opportunity.
The ultimate dog show.
Exactly. I suppose in the end, like from a Man City perspective, it didn't matter, and for Liverpool, like Szoboszlai is going to get one game for that. And as you said, it's like you could say it's cheating, but that's like game theory, isn't it? That's the first thing you try to do, and if you can get away with it, then fine. Because in that moment, what worries other options? Just let him go through. So I enjoyed watching it, and I think I'll watch that forever because it's just a hilarious sort of example of how football, even for as pristine as it can be at times, on occasion, it's just ridiculous, and that's exactly what that was to me.
Yeah. I mean, the whole of injury time, Barry, was brilliant. But like that whole last 20 minutes was in a game that was not a bad game, even if it was still 0-0. But, as soon as Szoboszlai scores that free kick, that next 20 minutes was just brilliant.
Yeah. Well, it was about 72 minutes on. It just was tremendous entertainment. The free kick was sensational. I don't know how he kicks a ball like that. To leave a goalkeeper of Donnarumma's quality just standing motionless, watching the ball whistle past him like that as it veered away to the right into the top corner was amazing. The Bernardo Silva goal was good. Szoboszlai he played him offside there, or played him onside there, so that was him giving off some main character energy ahead of his big moment. The penalty with Erling Haaland was standing there as Szoboszlai and McAllister tried to put him off, and he didn't seem at all flustered. I was kind of wondering, was he doing that thing where he then chucked the ball to somebody else to take the penalty once all the kerfuffle had died down? But no, he was quite happy to take a good penalty. And then that Donnarumma absolutely sensational save, which has kind of been forgotten a bit because of what happened after it. But that was a brilliant save.
Yeah, and actually, Wilson, that save has kind of been forgotten. But also Alisson's complete recklessness. He just doesn't need to do that. And that's actually the big moment of the game, really, and it has kind of been forgotten.
Yeah, I mean, just no need to make that challenge. Just a very weird rush of blood. But yeah, the Donnarumma save, I thought Joe Hart's punditry on that was really interesting. That shows the sort of
brilliant, wasn't it?
The real advantage of having a goalkeeper as a pundit, that they're explaining things that, I mean, certainly would never have occurred to me. I don't know if it occurred to an outfield player. But yeah, the way he sort of takes that little skip to his right before diving up for it. But yeah, it's just a sensational save and as important in the game as any of the goals.
Yeah, actually, Wilson, it's a bit like you talking about Hungary in the 50s. Joe Hart could be talking absolute nonsense because none of us know. We just have to agree with him. But I really do. I really do like how he breaks it all down. I mean, that free kick, Canadian. I mean, of the four of us, you're probably the best person at kicking a football.
Oh God, you sure? But go on, carry on.
There are two noises that, like, the noise of how he strikes it and the noise of it hitting the post is beautiful. But like, technically, it's so good.
Yeah, 100%. And I know there's been a sort of critique about, well, should you have more people in the wall and so on? But think about what he's had to do to score that free kick. He's had to miss the wall on the left side as we've seen it, but then curve off to behind where the wall was, whilst also giving the goalkeeper a clear view of seeing where it's going to go. That's it's such a low percentage goal, but such a high quality strike, because that's the only way realistically he was going to score, to strike it like that. And most people, when you try and get it to spin that way, it will probably slice. It will not be caught as sweetly as that. And you say, well, it's Szoboszlai, he has it in him. He does, but even for him, that's not a high percentage opportunity as such. But it was it's an amazing strike. I think it kind of reminds me in some ways, in terms of, or just let him shoot type mentality. Do you remember Çalhanoğlu's in Bundesliga probably 7 or 8 years ago, where he's wobbled one in from about 40 yards, no wall in there? I think he was at Leverkusen. It's one of the best goals you'll ever see. The goalkeeper says, "Oh, go on, just let him shoot." Ball's moved in about 8 different directions and then landed in the top corner. Keeper was nowhere near it. But you make these sort of guesses. You've got other things to focus on. You put 2 in the wall, you can then still defend with everybody around it. But the strike is as pure as it gets, and obviously we know that he has the ability to score goals from distance, but that one itself, to cut across it that way with that power, that's a 1%er type strike in my opinion.
Actually, Ned, what I mean, obviously it's a massive result for City. They haven't won at Anfield for so long. I wasn't quite aware of.
I know, Max. I know. Thank you. Thank you for telling me that. Thank you.
That's okay.
Yeah.
What's it like to lose at Anfield? No. But no, not that it's obviously such a massive win. But what chance do you give them of winning the title in the way that they are playing at the moment? Obviously, that result gives them, momentum.
Yeah.
And the Carabao Cup final will be quite interesting, because if they do beat Arsenal, then obviously there'll be all that chat around nervousness of Arsenal. But Arsenal in the box seat. But what hope do you give City?
Well, to be fair, the nervousness you could argue is going both ways, because Arsenal, yes, they haven't done it in such a long time, but they've been through a few of these title races before. So you'd like to think that you develop on the sort of negative experience you've had in the past to prepare yourself for these moments, especially with a deeper squad and like a more experienced core group of players as well. But I think the win yesterday, like, it's still 6 points behind Arsenal. There's no guarantee Arsenal are going to be dropping 6 points for the next few months or whatever. There's no guarantee of it. But when it's 9, it does feel different. And also from City being 1-0 down, especially because at the start, from 2026 in the league, they'd not scored a goal in the second half. Man City hadn't. So when it's 1-0 to Liverpool, according to the prior trends, that's it. It's over. You know what I mean? That game's over. And as you said, that record at Anfield, the last time City went at Anfield with a crowd was in 2003, I believe, and Nicolas Anelka scored, but Peter Schmeichel was in net for Man City. That's how niche it is. That's how niche that game was. Peter Schmeichel was in net for Man City at Anfield, and City won. So to go all those years, this is before my career started, this is when my career started, this is after I retired, and they're 1-0 down. So it's like, well, I guess that's it then. So to see that, I think it's going to give them massive belief. Obviously, they've not been perfect, but head into this next busy part of the season, as well as having a starting 11 who the manager sort of trusts, he's having some players coming back in and a bench that I think he believes in a little bit more than, say, we saw not too long ago. So the pressure will be on, and they've ridden their luck. I think before yesterday it was 1 win in 6, and they were still technically there with a chance of only being 6 points behind Arsenal. It feels like the gap should be bigger. So as far as belief goes, City have probably gained some, and maybe Arsenal have a little bit more doubt. But then, they're in the driving seat, so they don't need to worry that much.
Interesting that you and I both measure eras of the Premier League in your career, and I thought that was just me, but you do it too. Conscious that we've got lots to get through. I don't know if Barry or Wilson had anything else to major pick up. Arne Slot was upset with Mark Gay's challenge, but there probably was cover, wasn't there? If not, I'll move to the Emirates. Arsenal 3, Sunderland 0. What a balanced panel we have for this game. Wilson, you were there. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think 3-0 was probably a slightly wider margin than it ought to have been. Sunderland conceded 3 in 3 successive away games, but this was significantly the best performance of the 3. And they held Arsenal for 42 minutes and played pretty well in that first 42 minutes. But Alderweireld gives the ball away cheaply to Madueke. Arsenal cycle it round. Sunderland rushing back, they're not set, and Zubimendi scores with a brilliant finish. And that's the quality Arsenal have, that one small slip can cost you. And then the second goal, slightly different. Mukiele losing the ball, it was slightly less of an obvious error than Alderweireld being caught in possession. But he gives the ball away trying to clear it. And Arsenal score from that. So Arsenal forced 2 mistakes. They score from both of them. I think the point from a Sunderland point of view is that they just never looked like scoring. They had a good 10 minutes just after half time without ever really looking like they were going to take any of the chances. They've only scored 6 goals away from home all season. That's why their away form is so much poorer than their home form. But I think Mikel Arteta was very complimentary of Sunderland. Regis Lebris was very complimentary of Arsenal. It felt like the mutual respect at times was a bit too much. It felt like it almost sort of killed the competitiveness of a game. And then Arsenal got the 3rd goal in injury time on the break, where it's another Sunderland mistake. Ronaldo misjudges it on halfway. So 3-0, Arsenal won comfortably enough. Yeah, maybe it was more of a 2-0 game, but it was always a something nil game.
Yeah, they do, Barry, have an air of inevitability at the moment about them, Arsenal, don't they? I mean, since that defeat to Manchester United, 4 wins in a row in all competitions, they have bounced back when we all maybe thought there might be a bit of a wobble.
Yeah, I was more expecting a wobble from them in the Leeds game at Elland Road than I was here. Obviously, because they're away and Elland Road is a very hostile environment, but they absolutely pulled Leeds' pants down. I don't think they pulled Sunderland's pants down here, but they did beat them comfortably without playing, I would say, anywhere near their best. So that has to be good from an Arsenal perspective. My only gripe about this game would be that I was quite sad we let Victor Gyökeres score twice, because padding his numbers there a bit.
No, but I think he's good, Nedum. I don't know. Like, he scores EFL goals. You know, if you put those goals at Carlisle Stadium on some mud, they'd look like proper EFL goals. But I sort of think Arsenal might need this. I think you know, he's their top scorer now. He will get probably 15 by the end of the season. You know, I think he might be answering his critics a little bit.
Critics, you think that you think those 2 goals have helped Barry make his case that he's actually like a top striker? Is that what you're saying? Because it doesn't feel like that.
No, it doesn't feel like it just then. But I don't. You know,
well,
I'm talking about critics, not Barry. Yeah.
Isn't that what Arsenal were always crying out for? Someone to score those skanky, scrappy goals, and you know, because that's what they didn't have. So if he provides that service, great. It's another box ticked.
Yeah, for me, I think for the years people said, "Oh, they need a 9, they need a 9, need a 9." Like, I wasn't necessarily buying into that because I'd seen Arsenal play some really good football without one. I saw a point where they were at 50 points at the halfway point of the season, a point where they were either first or second top scorers in the league as well. And I think at times we sort of get caught up in like, well, somebody missed this chance. And if there was a 9 there, they would have scored this chance. But some of those chances haven't really... So let me put it this way. It's like for some of those games, if it was another team doing it, it wouldn't necessarily be the 9 that's scoring that goal. It would be other people just stepping up in big moments. And then the discussion isn't about the 9 not scoring. It's about the team not scoring in that manner. And Gyökeres he's obviously a good player. But I think what sums up is I think Arteta sees him as an option. I don't think he sees him as the main option because there are certain games which maybe require a skill set. But I quite like, to be honest, watching Arsenal when it's a mix of like Havertz and Jesus because it's a little bit different. I think at times for defenders, you kind of know how Gyökeres is going to play. And he's a good finisher and stuff, but he wants to play like the physical side of things. You know, some of the runs are, not as a slur, but like, yeah, that you do see more of that saying around the EFL and stuff, but it's not saying he's not a good player because obviously he is. But I think for Arsenal, sometimes when they go up against some of these sides, they need the brute strength, but they need a bit of finesse as well. I think the other two kind of have that. And say, there's no surprise to me, say the Havertz assist for the Gyökeres first goal. You know, I think that's a clever bit of movement from Havertz from that turnover. Obviously, he needs to be able to capitalise on the mistakes. But Havertz drifts into a space and he plays a great pass. And then even for the second goal, it's great that Gyökeres can be there to tap it in. But a lot of that comes from the pressure of Martinelli and the full speed nature of that. Maybe someone else would have been there. But I think for Arteta, it's good to have options. You know, Gyökeres can start on the bench, come on and score 2 goals and make a difference. If it was the other way around than he started, maybe they'd have been winning, maybe they wouldn't. But yeah, I don't think he's the main person at Arsenal up top. I think he's just one of the options that he has. So as a consequence, yeah, he must be a good player, but I don't think he's the difference as such.
One other note from that game is that Brian Brobby probably lucky to stay on the pitch. A clumsy challenge. I mean, who would do a clumsy challenge on a football pitch like that? I know, Brobby would. But anyway, yeah, he probably got away with that. And that'll do for part 1. Part 2 will begin at Old Trafford. Welcome to part 2 of the Guardian Football Weekly. So 4 wins in a row for Manchester United. They beat Spurs 2-0. I mean, the main story of the game, Wilson, is Cristian Romero, you know, who has spent a couple of weeks just being rude about the board on Instagram. Can the board now be rude about him on Instagram? His 6th red card for Spurs, his 4th in the Premier League. Since he signed, no one in the Premier League has been sent off more. He'll miss 4 games. And I don't know what you think. I don't know how good a defender he is. Like, he is a liability. Like, he's good at passing the ball. He scores goals. But he does these challenges that you saw in the 80s where you take the ball, a bit of the ball, and you just take everything else and you get away with it. And sometimes he still gets away with it, but he just does it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's a liability. That's what he is. I think good Romero, when his head's switched on, is great. But he's always prone to... I mean, it wasn't the worst challenge on Saturday, I think. On another day, you might have got away with it, but you can't argue with it. You know, I think something slightly strange happens with Casemiro's legs. That his sort of ankle gets caught under him, which makes it look worse. But that's not saying it's not a red card. It just isn't the worst example of that type of challenge. It's not the worst challenge Romero's made this season. But just why are you making that sort of challenge 35 yards from your own goal with plenty of players around you? It's just the sort of thing that a sensible, calm defender doesn't do.
Nedum, you're a sensible, calm defender.
Once upon a time, that's not me anymore.
Yeah. Now you're a violent psychopath. But take us back to...
Absolutely. Since I retired, the edges really come out. I think for Romero, like the discussion is like, is he a good player and so on. Well, yeah, for me, he has to be. Firstly, like, he's played international football for Argentina.
Sure, he's won the World Cup,
champions.
of course. Yeah,
like it's very tough for me to have played for QPR in some dark times and then say that this World Cup winner, isn't a good defender, because it kind of reflects on me a little bit.
But isn't that funny that I can, because I've never been anywhere near a good football pitch, but you can't.
Listen, you got to be careful. You can speak about certain things here, Max. But but as well as that, when it comes down to Spurs, when they have an injury crisis, if it's ever Romero and Van der Ven that are out, we'll say, they'll be better when Romero and Van der Ven come back, because they've got a good partnership. So there is something there. But I just think, like, the stuff which you said about the board, what I think is interesting is the board and so on. He's done this for a year, 2 years now. The stuff that he says, I'd imagine a lot of Spurs fans agree with what he's saying. So he's not the villain at his own football club in the way that we will perceive him to be the villain from the outside. He appears to play with, air quotes, passion, and wants to represent those fans and work with his teammates. And he's trusted to the point where he is the captain. However, having said that the squad is at its bare bones and there are not enough players left to be playing, a 4-game ban, I don't think that helps the club out too much.
I don't think it does.
I don't think it helps too much at all. And it was the fact that, like, sometimes like people will be red carded and they're stunned. There's like an appeal. It's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like saying to the referee, blah, blah, blah. Casemiro's on the floor looking like his leg's about to get chopped off because it's so bad, this tackle. And Romero's like, yeah, that's a red, isn't it? That's a red. He's taking his armband off. He's like passing it over. He's even got his flipping international teammate, Martinez, saying like, what are you doing? I say, yeah, it's a red. But like, as captain, with the responsibility that you have towards your team, especially in the tougher times, to go missing like that after trying to be outspoken about you having the team and club's best interests at heart, the argument just falls flat. Because now, I don't know if you know any Spurs fans, Max, but you're now in this weird position where you try and defend him in a way which just makes you sound like a crazy person. Previously, you could have said, the club stuff, yeah, fine. But that tackle, you could easily pull out of those tackles. And to give you a bit of insight as well, like the referees know what players' tendencies are and so on. And sometimes, say like if a ball's between two people, he'll shout for somebody to not go in for a tackle. That's what a referee would do. You'd be like, calm, don't do this and so on. Now, unless Romero's red mist is also something that makes him deaf, I think he's probably had the chance to pull out that tackle. But also to add a bit of balance to this. So Cristian Romero's got 4 red cards, since he's arrived. Do you know who's second on that list in the Premier League? And do you know who's third? It's actually quite funny, if you had to guess in terms of red cards.
What are they? Is it wispy 10s who keep getting sent off? Is it?
No, not at all, actually. The person with the other most amount of red cards in that time, up until the other day, was Casemiro. I'll put that out there.
Okay, yeah.
Who's on the same as Ezri Konsa, on 3.
Okay.
So Cristian Romero, it was Romero, who's on 4 now, but previously he was on 3, with Lewis Cook, Casemiro, Konsa, Mason Holgate, Raul Jimenez, Reece James. In fact, Reece James's minutes per red card is probably worse than Cristian Romero's. Let that sink in.
But he doesn't like...
That's a captain that's a liability there, Reece James. Yeah. Remember that.
But they don't fly in all the time. I don't know. Anyway, M says, are Spurs in danger of relegation? Wilson, are Spurs in danger of going down?
I mean, they shouldn't be, but on the other hand, what do you call a team at 6 points off a relegation zone with 13 games to go and playing abysmally with their captain out for 4 games and loads of other injuries?
Yeah. 1 win in 7.
I mean, they're missing... I think they did 10 or 11 out for that game. He's now out for 4. Destiny Udogie had to go off, so he's probably out. That's, 13 players missing, 6 points off the relegation zone. The only thing not putting them in the relegation zone is the fact that they're Tottenham Hotspur and people think it's kind of inconceivable that Spurs could go down.
But the best thing, we thought it was great last season when Spurs finished 4th bottom but won the Europa League. Imagine this season if they finish 3rd bottom and win the Champions League. And Thomas Lang turn around to Ange and go, that's a real season. And also, imagine if Arsenal do
season 3
then
was better. Yeah.
lose the do then lose the title on goal difference to City. Just imagine the meltdown in North London.
Be a mushroom cloud.
It feels unlikely, but let's hope. Manchester United now, Baz, have won 4 Premier League games in a row for the first time since Eric Ten Hag was there. Unbeaten in their last 8.
Saying that kind of takes the gloss off what is an otherwise excellent achievement. Oh, well, if he can do it, how hard can it be?
I mean, it is extraordinary what Michael Carrick has managed to do there in 4 games. I mean, they are now sort of favourites to get into the Champions League.
I mean, it's extraordinary in its ordinariness because he hasn't done anything that particularly revolutionary. He's just playing players in their proper positions, and the players clearly have a lot of time for him and didn't have much time for his predecessor. He made one change here, I think, that's kind of tactical tweak, where he didn't play Brian Mbeumo as a centre forward and didn't really have a main striker in this position. So Tottenham's defenders weren't quite sure whether to stick or twist or who to mark and whatnot. But apart from that, Carrick hasn't. He has, his results speak for themselves, but he hasn't done anything particularly brilliant or anything that would suggest he's a managerial genius.
Wilson,
but the great advantage he has is that United have not played a team this season and will not play a team this season who have played less football than them. They have been at least as fresh, if not more fresh, than every team they've played and will play. So I think there's only 2 more games they've got this season against a team that's even played the same number of games as them, which is the West Ham game they've got coming up. But maybe West Ham are distracted by the fact they got the FA Cup at the weekend. And is it Bournemouth, the other game? So if they look fresher and sharper and playing with more energy than their opponents, that's not necessarily some great tactical thing by Carrick. That's just that they've been absolutely hopeless and so haven't had to play much football. So they are in terms of.
You're saying this would have happened anyway?
Very much not. But it just makes it really hard to judge Michael Carrick. And they really should now qualify for Champions League quite easily because they should be really fresh.
Newcastle 2, Brentford 3. Brentford's first win at Newcastle in 92 years. Done the double over them this season. Ouattara was brilliant in this game. Amazing cross for Janel, and he strikes the winner so well. They are 7th, Nedum, level on points with Liverpool. And I don't know if you had them relegated at the start of the season, but lots of people did. And it is great credit to Keith Andrews.
Yeah, it's huge credit to Keith Andrews. I think when you look at, say, the toil that Thomas Frank is sort of having at Spurs, and you see players like Vista, for example, not necessarily being able to have the impact at Newcastle that he had last season, was another striker, another key player gone. And Brentford are better? Question mark? Yeah. It is surreal. I think it's probably a couple of months ago, I was seeing them what felt like trending in the wrong direction. And I thought, wow, they might be in trouble. The same way you're having that discussion, well, Spurs in a relegation dogfight. I thought that was Brentford. And then casually, they've had a ton of 3 o'clock kickoffs on a Saturday where they just keep winning. And now they're like prime time. They're box office. They're a great team to watch in terms of how they try and play, because it's not not simple, that's disrespectful. But the way that I think they played previously feels a bit different to how they play now. I think they do want to try and take the game to you as quickly as possible. They do have set pieces and so on, but they've got some really good footballers out there. There are some games where, they'll have a ton of possession and they travel really well. I think most recently, like a loss to Chelsea was actually a really impressive performance by them, to where they're disappointed that they've not gone to Stamford Bridge and won in a game which they dominated for the most part. I never thought I'd be hearing that about Brentford, or thinking that about Brentford, especially at this point in their history, but they've been fantastic. They deserve so much credit for being able to, continue to develop as a club, to develop as individuals, as people keep getting taken away from their club. But they're really, really worthwhile. And I think for me, the only issue is and maybe this is my bias, I hold mine up if this is me. Even though they're doing really well, I'd imagine most teams that would go and play against them say, well, we're just playing Brentford, as opposed to playing against a team where they've got the second top scorer in the league and they're one of the most informed teams in the league that can play really well at home and away. and are essentially pushing for Europe right now, which is not something I thought I'd be saying about Brentford come the middle of February.
They also benefit from the freshness that Wilson spoke of with regard to Manchester United. They had all week to prepare for that game. It was Newcastle's second match in 4 days. It was Newcastle's 39th match of the season. So, which is not to take away from what they're doing. You can only play the games you're given to play.
Yeah, and actually Brentford, apart from that Chelsea away game, they've won the other 4 of the last 5: Wolves, Everton, Villa, and now Newcastle. And the move that led up to the penalty was a brilliant move, wasn't it? I don't know if it was a penalty or not. I can't have another handball discussion. Meanwhile, Wilson, Eddie Howe, after the game said, look, I've always said the pressure I put on myself couldn't be more extreme because I demand really high standards. I know how he feels. I'm obviously not doing my job well enough at the moment. I obviously don't know how that feels. I'm annoyed with myself, angry with myself, and blaming myself. I've got to take full responsibility for everything you see on the pitch, and I've got to work out solutions. We've sort of talked a few times about whether he's under pressure or how much pressure he's under, but like things are not working at the moment.
No, I mean, I think they're equidistant from Champions League qualification and relegation. I think they're 10 points off both. So realistically, they're going to be mid-table. And that feels like stagnation after last season when they won a trophy, when they got in the Champions League. Yeah, they are still in the Champions League. They could have a run in that. They're still in the Cup, so they could have a run in that, which could salvage the season. But it feels like a bit of a nothing season. And obviously their summer was ruined by the whole Isak affair. But even beyond that, you look at their signings. Yeah, Langer's done nothing. Jacob Ramsey's done nothing. Voltemada, after a good start, has sort of regressed to where people who'd seen him play in Germany sort of thought he was. I mean, he's only 23. He may well develop, but not quite being at the level you'd be paying 65 million quid for him. So I think it's very hard to say the squad's in a better place now than it was this time last season. And I think an ongoing sense that the Saudis have kind of lost interest in the project. I mean, the stadium move, nothing seems to be happening. Even the training ground development doesn't really seem to be going on. So, it's very hard to look at them and see anything other than the club as just sort of treading water a bit at the minute. Which, after winning winning our first trophy for 70 years, it's a little bit like Palace. They win something, and that's great, and you have a great euphoria, and obviously, that's a great thing to win, and in 10, 20, 30 years, people will look back on that with great fondness. It hasn't actually changed the club in any real way.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like how you said, Voltemada may develop. He's only 23. I like the idea that he might grow even more. And actually, Keith Andrews actually said of Django Ouattara, he's growing every week. And I was like, he's quite big anyway. Like if he's doing that every week, it'd be like a Sabutio corner kicker. Burnley 0, West Ham 2 consigns Burnley probably to the Championship. Scott Parker was booed. The players were booed. He was pretty upset about that afterwards. But we should start with West Ham, I guess. 3 wins in the last 4, 3 points off Forest, 6 points off Leeds and Spurs. They could get out of this.
Yeah, they absolutely could. Can I just give a shout out as well to Wilson, because you called it the Carling Cup, and I love it when we all just show our age, just let it slip out every so often.
Come on. Come on. It's very much the milk cup if Wilson's showing his age here.
To be fair, I was thinking, for him, I was thinking more Coca-Cola Cup, or is that the wrong thing?
Rumbelows for me, Clive.
It's absolutely it's an enormous win for West Ham, but you could kind of see it coming, couldn't you? I think West Ham in recent weeks have played some good football, and they have gotten some results. They're sort of energised with the signing of Tati, Castellanos, and a couple of others. And even, I've got to say, by the way, I think Wan-Bissaka coming back from AFCON has been a big deal for them. I think he's done very, very well. And there was even a point, say, against Burnley after they took the 2-0 lead. I think he made a block on the line. And maybe this is just me having a defender's bias. That was a big moment because it was quite early in the second half. And if that goes to 2-1, then Burnley have a bit more belief, and it's like a different sort of game for West Ham as such. But to be able to go on the road and collect points, doesn't matter who you're playing against, because as somebody who unfortunately has looked at the bottom half of the table as a player for a lot of his career, sometimes when you look at fixtures, you can't help but assign yourself potential points. And being at home to West Ham is definitely one of those fixtures for Burnley. Even if they hadn't won for 20 games, and I know the number's like 15 now, whatever, you'd say, well, West Ham at home, that's where the run's gonna start. So for it to not only not start there, but to lose by a couple of goals, to have your crowd booing you as players, booing you as the manager, everyone that turned up that day would have had a belief that they could and maybe should be winning that game. You want to test yourself against those teams who are down there. So whereas West Ham have got momentum now, Burnley've pretty much, they've got nothing. 11 points back with 13 games to go, having won, I think it's 3 games all season. It's horrible for them, but for West Ham, it's a really good 3 points and a much needed 3 points. And now Forest, like even Leeds winning that game against Forest on Friday was massive, because now, they've got a 6-point gap to West Ham, but West Ham are 3 points away from Nottingham Forest. This is one of those, finally, after a few years, one of those like relegation dogfights where you could actually say, oh, maybe it'll take you 40 points to stay up, because one of the teams down there is actually winning some games of football as opposed to just essentially just counting down until the end of the season.
Don't say that. I don't know where Spurs are getting 11 points from, Nedum. I don't want to think about that. 5 in a row for Crescencio Somerville. Actually, both goals I thought were really brilliant. The Fernandez pass for Somerville was like inch perfect. His finish was great. And Somerville's little flick to, was it Juve on the left, who put in a brilliant cross, like Watara's cross. It was so good for Castellanos. Anyway, I mean, there's no point sacking Scott Parker, is there, Barry?
Probably not. They may well do, but I don't think anyone's going to come in and get them out of that pickle. I kind of feel sorry for Scott Parker. Burnley just aren't a very good team. I mean, they were dreadful against Sunderland last Monday. They weren't very good here. It was a very comfortable win for West Ham. Burnley showed a bit of life in the middle of the game, but they were 2-0 down at that point. It's not working out for him as a Premier League manager, is it? I think this is his 3rd bite of the cherry, and 2 of those bites having been with the cherries. And maybe he's just, the Championship is his level. Yeah.
I mean, it's hard because he never seems to have, although like when he was at Bournemouth and he said this lot are useless, and then it was Gary O'Neill, that's right, and made them considerably better. Nedum, you mentioned that Leeds win over Forest 3-1. I mean, it was an absolutely huge game on Friday night, and Leeds, were 2 up by half time, 3-0 up early in the second half. Wilson, they totally dominated this game.
Oh, completely dominant, and seemed to be absolutely loving it. Loads of little back heels and flicks, and I mean, they're playing with. And this is another reason for Spurs to be nervous, frankly, that Leeds are playing with great confidence, particularly at home. They're not going to drop that many points at home between now and the end of the season. So, they're on 29 now. You would assume they'll get, I don't know, at least another 3 home wins, and then they are getting to 40. And I think Nedum's right that I'd sort of thought 36 points was safe for Sunderland beating Burnley on Monday. I now think they need another 2 wins to be absolutely safe. And maybe that's me being paranoid and overly nervous. But one of the reasons for that is that both West Ham and Leeds are playing really well at the minute and getting them more points you'd expect from teams, or certainly more points than teams in that position have been getting in previous seasons. Which then, Forest are the other team in big trouble. Their form is not good. They sort of look a bit lifeless under Sean Dyche, and you think given Marinakis, could he go in the near future?
Yeah, I mean that's probably the interesting point. Worth pointing out Dominic Calvert-Lewin's chest goal. I mean, I love a chest at all moments of football, but that was a great finish. A strong right pec he must have. Leeds have won every fixture they played in the evening at Ellen Road this season. It's 5 of them, so maybe they should just delay kickoffs until 7:45. Nedum, what do you make of Sean Dyche there? It's almost like they got him too soon.
Too soon?
Yeah, like, the Dyche bounce comes in later in the season.
Yeah, well, does it? I don't know. It's strange. We're living in weird times here. Like, Sean Dyche comes into a Nottingham Forest side that are also playing in Europe whilst also trying to fight off relegation. That's a strange thought. At the same time as, say, Brentford in 7th and, United, the underdog who don't have any European football or an FA Cup or a League Cup, we're trying to qualify for Europe. It's just really, really strange times. And I think that 3-point gap at the bottom between them and West Ham, I'll be honest, it is still quite significant, just because teams can go on these runs now, but in reality, you're down there because these runs don't happen very often. So yes, you can have a dip in form, but as long as you're just outside of that bottom three, like you can look into this a bit later in the season. You never know when you've gained your last point of the season. You can always assume that something good's going to happen, but you never know. You never know. So if it was to stop, what's your position? And for Sean Dyche, like, maybe he'll completely sack off Europe in the next few weeks. Maybe they'll just be like, nah, this isn't for us. The league is the priority. And if that's the case, maybe things become easier because being able to play in that many games between now and the end of the season is not going to benefit them. But league-wise, they will find form. I think that result and performance against Leeds in some ways would be alarming. But I doubt that he went into the dressing room after and said, unlucky boys, that this will be fine. We'll carry on as we are. I think he'll probably try and use that as a line in the sand and say, from this point forward, this is who we're going to be. And it's going to be probably a style of football, which maybe we have seen before from a Sean Dyche, regardless of whatever type of players that he has now. And I think they will be more robust going forward. But as I say, take the 3-point gap for now. That is the biggest positive.
Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. Brighton 0, Palace 1. Reedy says, how high up the league does the relegation scrap go now? I say up to and including Palace. So Palace have 32, Newcastle 33, Bournemouth and Fulham 34 above them, nervous Sunderland, Wilson 36. But then below them, it is Brighton 31, Spurs and Leeds 29, Forest 26, West Ham 23.
Yeah, I don't know. But this is a massive win for Palace. Well,
sorry, thank you for making me repeat it all, just so you could give that answer. It was a really worthwhile use of my time. Anyway, you're right, Barry. It was an enormous win for Palace.
Yeah, of course it was. Quite apart from the needle involved, this was a really bad game against two teams in rotten runs of form. I think Brighton now have won 1 in 12 in all competitions. Palace went into this game without a win in 12, so they needed something to electroshock their season back into life, and got it through a well-taken goal by Ismail Assar. I think Fabian Hürzeler has to be under pressure now at this stage, insofar as we don't really know what Tony Bloom is ever thinking, because he's got quite the poker face, which has helped earn him billions of pounds at the poker table. But a brilliant win for Palace. There's not really much to say about this game because it was crap, but Palace defended well, got the goal and got the 3 points.
Yeah, fair play to Gassan, who Stan Bardell said was the worst player of all time, who did quite well to set up that Ismail Assar goal, which is the first thing I've seen him do. So well done to him. But yeah, the story is Hürzeler and how much pressure he's under, I guess. Wolves 1, Chelsea 3. Brad says, have you ever seen someone less enthused to score a 25-minute hat-trick? That's just Cole Palmer's way, I guess, isn't it? He's such a wonderful player, Nedum, and you hope he stays fit. And it's really, it is the sort of England conversation, because he's a 10, so he's behind Morgan Rogers and Jude Bellingham, I guess. But there's got to be space for him, Nedum, hasn't there?
I'd like to think so, for the quality that he has. And, this is a guy who, I think he came on did not set up a goal in the final at the last Euros. He came on off the bench there, didn't he?
Scored.
He scored?
No, he scored, yeah, of course, yeah, he scored, yeah. And I thought he had some impact. So it would be tough to completely leave him out. But what's interesting at the minute is the discussion around his fitness and his injury and so on. Because he's playing, then after the game says, yeah, I'm not fit. That's not really normal type lingo to be giving yourself as a player. Yeah, well, when he gets fit, when he does this week, well, if he's not fit, why is he playing? If he's carrying an injury, why is he in it this time? Surely you'd want him to be able to come back and, to find match sharpness and stuff, but to be fit enough to be able to play. So, yeah, I hope he continues to do well. Like a Cole Palmer hat-trick, that type of vibe from 2 penalties feels like Cole Palmer from 2 seasons ago. When he first, came in, scoring most weeks, one of the most exciting, talents we'd seen for a while. But I hope he does stay healthy. I hope he can find that sort of form. And I think he'll be potentially a big difference for Chelsea. Obviously, against Wolves, it's a tough sort of measure because Wolves are sort of playing 2 games at the minute. There's the one where, they're going to be relegated, but the other side where they're almost playing for their futures and for the crowd to do something to keep them sort of enthused a little bit. but he did what he needed to do. And I like the 2 pens of the pens, but the third goal, I like the late run and I like the first time finish. That's something that he can do very well. And not to say, like, to compare it because it's like decades worth, but somebody for Chelsea turning up late in the box on the edge and to finish it first time feels like a Frank Lampard to me. That level of like importance in stepping up in that manner. So I hope he can stay healthy. And for England, I don't know if this is. So Thomas Tuchel was at the Fulham game, and firstly I thought he must live in West London and have something to do that evening because I didn't think Fulham versus Everton was the game where I'd expect to see the England manager. But I was saying, maybe Smith Rowe. I thought, oh my goodness, because that's what England need, another number 10. Another number 10 that's not going to play because Harry Kane will play the 9 and the 10 and everyone else must sort of fall in line around it. But yeah, Cole Palmer in form, in good health. For me, without question, you take him in the summer.
Maybe he doesn't know that Harry Wilson's Welsh. That's possible, isn't it? You say the Wolves players are playing for their futures or for the crowd. I wonder which Mosquera was doing for my favourite penalty foul of the season by just pushing someone over. Why not? Just if you can't be bothered, 2 hands right in the back, shove, penalty. Great stuff. Liam Rossini has won his first 4 Premier League games in charge.
I
Brentford,
think
Palace,
you're
West Ham, Wolves.
doing Matt
Yes.
Doherty a disservice there,
No.
Max, as well.
Okay,
Because
fair. Yeah, you're right.
I'm not sure Mosquera's was even the most stupid in that match.
I
mean,
don't know. At least obviously,
Obviously Wolves are going down.
Yeah.
But Christ, give yourself a chance at least.
No, I agree. Fulham on Everton too. Wilson, how far ahead do you think Fulham should have been in this game? Like, they had so many chances. I thought 5 wouldn't have been unfair.
Yeah, I mean, they had loads of chances. They didn't take them. I don't know. This feels like something that happens with Everton quite a lot. Did this not happen against Leeds the other week? That Leeds battered them and then Everton got one back, or drew the game from nowhere. So maybe that's just what they do. Maybe they're the Premier League sponge. They just absorb shots and then you squeeze it and it dribbles out a goal. But the last 20 minutes of that game, Everton played really well. So yeah, Fulham could have had it won, but they didn't. And that's, if you don't take your chances, that's what can happen.
The winning goal, the first US chat show host goal I can remember, O'Brien challenging Leno, was the corner taken by Trevor Letterman? I don't know. Where was Jeff Carson in all of this? Marco Silva, as producer Joel writing with a remarkable sentence in his post-match that I've read so many times. Marco Silva said, "It is normal when you lose the game, we lose the game we lost." You can't argue with that, Marco.
Mm-hmm.
David Moyes was on good form. He had a touchline ban because he'd celebrated the winning goal the other week. Was it a winning goal? Yeah, it was. He said, "I haven't actually seen it again. It looks as though the centre-back was in front of the goal and got a touch from 5 stories up. I'm glad I was up there because I'd have probably been on the pitch for that second goal as well." Bournemouth won, Villa won finally. This, Nedum, is this the end of Villa's title challenge? It feels like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly feels like it, but not necessarily just because of the result. It's just the fact that I thought Bournemouth battered them. It was like a really strange thing to see. I thought Villa were going to be, obviously they've got some injuries which are key in midfield, the likes of McGinn, Tielemans and others, but I thought they were going to be more so on the front foot. They rode a storm for a part of the first half and then Morgan Rogers scores a screamer. Tell me if you've heard that before. It was a great finish, kicked it so hard, the keeper, he dived like after the ball hit the net. That's
you can get beaten at your near post. There is proof.
Yeah.
You're allowed.
Yes. If it's a rocket that is going towards your near post, yes, it's understandable that maybe you don't save it. But for me, it never really got better. As I was watching the game, I thought, Villa have their spell, they'll have their spell. But the spell that they had wasn't for very long. And as I said, the nature in which sort of Bournemouth went at them, I was very, very impressed with. I think on a different day, I think Bournemouth probably win that game more times than not. If you were to repeat it, some of the chances that they had, Martinez in nets, like he's doing well. He's doing really, really well for them. And I think that's just a bit disappointing for a side who, at some point would have had aspirations of being in a title race because they weren't that far away. All of a sudden, they're 9 points back now, and I think it was incredible when they went on that run of winning 10 plus games in a row. And they were very much deserving of being up near the top of the league and being spoken about in that manner. But that performance, to me, doesn't feel like a team that's going to be starting their next run anytime soon. So yes, they are potentially out of the title race, you could say. Well, probably definitely out of the title race. But, Chelsea are in fifth and only 4 points behind them. So now, instead of like looking up thinking it's a game's game, what are Arsenal doing and so on, it's like, well, what are the teams behind them doing? Because United as well and Chelsea, they're both in great form. So unless you continue to, grind out some like positive results, you might start sliding down the league. But again, then I suppose the upside is it's the top 5 teams that make it to the Champions League this year. Just a shame that the team in 6 are the reigning champions and they're good to go, aren't they? So let's see.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard, I guess. The Premier League's hard, isn't it? That's the proof. You can go on this amazing run, but other teams have good players and can be on form, because Bournemouth are on a terrible run. And now they're on a brilliant run since the turn of the year. Only Manchester United and Chelsea have collected more points than them. And I think, John Brewin, Barry, who mentioned Rayan the other day? And he scored a
he was very impressed with him. He scored a really good goal, but I mean, Bournemouth were well worth their point in this game, should have taken all 3. But the defending for that Rayan goal from Luca Dean was extraordinarily bad. Now, I'm going to charitably give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he thought Emi Buendia was coming across to help him and kind of left it to him, but Emi Buendia didn't.
I think, Barry, you've been very charitable there. I would argue that's the worst bit of defending we've seen this whole year in the Premier League.
Okay.
That's the case that I would make for it, because Rayan is coming towards the goal. Luca Dean is left back. Traditionally, and maybe I'm too conservative with this, as a fullback, you try and show him outside instead of opening the passage to come inside. And when Buendia has never caught up with Rayan, you think to yourself, well, maybe it's important that I do something, because the worst case scenario here is like, well, not even just stand in the way. It's like he's just completely moved out of the way. Rayan goes and he scores. But I think, to be honest, the thing that set me off the most is then Digne just threw his hands up in the air like, what's going on? What's going on with you, my friend? Like, what was that? And all these disclaimers, great player, all that stuff. That is one of the worst bits of defending I think I've potentially ever seen from a defender, because he just basically, it's like he gave up on it, thinking that was the right thing to do. But I don't see why that would be the case when your winger is running directly towards you with the threat of like potentially scoring a goal.
I think if I was Luca Dean in that situation, I'd want one of the fans to put an overcoat over me, like Pele in Escape to Victory, usher me out of the ground, because I would be afraid to go in to face Unai Emery in the dressing room. I would imagine that was not pleasant. Or if they're doing a video meeting today, it's got to be.
I did like Rayan's toe punt, though. That's a good way to score a goal, isn't it? Fraser says, never mind Dr. Tottenham. After bringing to an end the longest ever EFL losing streak at home in history, is it now Dr. Cambridge? Yes, of course, Cambridge United. They're at themselves on their longest unbeaten run in history of 14 games. 6 wins in a row, went to bottom of the table, Harrogate, and of course we lost. Anyway, it's okay. We're still in with a shout. And that'll do for today. Thanks, everybody.